2018, my second year of university, I moved into an off-campus apartment. Living on the first floor of the apartment made me feel a strange energy. From the day I moved into the room, I was filled with some kind of disturbing observations. My room, located at the end of the apartment, overlooking the paw, was almost like a focal point of strange energies. I often felt like I was being watched when I went out, like to my car or to the gym. One night, we had all gone to bed and I had work the next day, so I was trying to get to sleep before it got too late. But around midnight, I was awakened by a strange sound, like a doorknob turning. Fortunately, I locked the door to my room every night, which had become a habit, especially after having a terrible lucid dream a few months ago. I sat up quickly and looked at the door. After a few minutes of silence, I thought maybe I was just hearing things. A few minutes later, though, I heard the same sound, and this time I knew exactly what it was. I saw the shadows of feet directly under the door next to my bed. 100% someone was standing there. And then I heard 3 light clicks. Without thinking, I shouted, "Who's there?" At first, I thought it must be one of my roommates trying to get into my room, but no one answered, and there was silence again. We had witnessed a strange phenomenon when we were walking in through the closed glass door, which was not in the room, but in part of the hall. I turned around and said very quietly, "Whoa, it's John," and we all thought, "Whoa, what should we do?" And then we realized that there might be someone at the door. Or maybe it was one of our friends who was on the same floor as us. Because we didn't lock our door, we communicated with a sign on the floor, and everyone had left a special click on our door. If they wanted to come in, they would tap on the door, and we would say, "Come in" from inside. Tonight we here to tap on the door. All of our friends were in our room and none of them should have been at the door. It was either a stranger or our dormitory manager. I quickly went to the peephole and looked, and I saw that it was indeed John. I immediately turned around and said very quietly, "Whoa, it's John." We all thought, whoa, what should we do? Then we were in a situation where we were disturbed by the fact that he had entered our room unconsciously. After hanging out in our room for a bit, I decided to ask John, my boyfriend, if we wanted him to leave our room because someone was FaceTiming with the men in our room on my phone. I guess John didn't realize that being in our room was making us uncomfortable. After some pacing around the room, one of the men in our room said, "Oh, John, they want them to leave their room. Get out." John looked at the phone, then back at his phone and continued on without a care in the world. One of the girls in the room then said, "Oh, John, they don't want you, get out." And again he looked at the phone and didn't leave. After 5 minutes of this, a girl in the room said she had to go to the restroom and John had to leave the room in the meantime. John said okay, but he didn't leave the room. He left to go to the toilet, but he didn't go to the toilet. He just stood in front of the toilet door. For us, it was really strange and incomprehensible. Even though we told him several times to come out of our room, he didn't understand. Finally, one of the girls in the room locked the door to the restroom, and we decided to wait until he returned to the room. John was still standing there, and obviously wanted to share something with us. Just then, the girl from the restroom came out to ask why John was standing in front of the toilet. Instead of answering, John hugged her and said something. Meanwhile, the girl immediately locked the door and returned to the room to tell us what had happened. As John stood in front of the toilet, she hugged him and asked him, "Do you love me?" The girl was very uncomfortable and immediately went behind the locked door. So instead of letting John into our room, we decided to leave him with the girl and wait for her to come out of the room. After this incident, we decided not to let John into our room under any circumstances and warned the other girls about it. John never came to our doorstep again. At the end of the incident, we had a better understanding of how to deal with such situations, and we decided to support each other by sharing such situations with the people around us. Everyone continued to live safely, maintaining their own boundaries. During my freshman year, an incident on the second floor of my university dormitory had a profound impact on me. Maybe a week or two into the school year, I had started to meet a lot of people. I had made friends in my classes, met new people in the activities I participated in. However, there was one person I kept running into. He was short, with dark brown hair, and he appeared every day in a way that constantly bothered me. Every morning on my way to or from classes, I was bound to see him. Even though the school was quite big, somehow we kept bumping into each other. I thought it was just a coincidence. We were probably attending the same classes and using the same campus spaces. But after a while, it became strange to see this person every day. The school was not big, but it was not small either. Seeing this person several times every day could no longer be a coincidence. After about a month of this, one day I went to the water dispenser in the corridor to get a drink of water. When I returned to my room, I saw this person entering my room. When I entered the room, his eyes were looking at me with an expression of great surprise. After hesitating for a while, he said that he had accidentally entered the wrong room. He quickly left the room and I just stared after him. I couldn't understand exactly what had happened, but this incident disturbed me. At first I thought that maybe he had entered my room by mistake, but the events that followed started to worry me. One day when I went into the hallway again to drink water, he somehow caught up with me and entered my room again. This time I managed to close and lock the door before letting him in. Then I asked him why he kept trying to get into my room, but he just kept looking at me silently. One day, when I went out into the hallway to get a drink of water, he caught up with me again and started talking to me, this time in a more friendly manner. However, he said that he really knew me, that he wanted to be friends with me, and that was why he was always in the same places as me. This made me feel uneasy, and I didn't want to walk around alone anymore. I started walking around with a friend of mine, but that person was constantly approaching me again. One day when I was walking with my friend, suddenly he stopped and looked at me. "I want to tell you something," he said. He then confessed that in the previous days, he had tried to enter my room, tried to talk to me, and had been constantly watching me. I was horrified by these confessions and immediately thought of contacting security. I told the security guards and they immediately intervened. This person was a student who lived in the same building as me. After security intervened, this person was given an official warning to stay away from me and that he could face disciplinary action if he continued to harass me. From that day on, this person stayed away and I started to be more careful. In my second year at university, a group of friends and I moved into a shared house. There were 6 of us living in the house, and each of us had a different room. However, after a while, strange things started to happen. First, one of our friends lost his keys. It seemed like an ordinary thing, but the only people who had access to those keys were the 6 of us living in the house. The keys were found one day in the common areas of the house. However, this incident happened again. Another friend's wallet disappeared, and everyone started blaming each other. After the events of that day, many people in the house began to suspect each other. After a while, some of my personal belongings started to disappear too. Each time, they were found in different places in the house. This made the atmosphere in the house tense. Everyone distrusted each other, and we felt as if we were involved in some kind of theft. However, over time, we began to think that it was a joke. One day, everyone in the house got together, and we decided to talk about the situation. Everyone was honest with each other, and no one actually deliberately took other people's things and moved them. However, we were worried that this situation was still going on and no one could solve it. One of our friends thought that our house might have a strange energy and suggested that we should consult an expert. At first, the idea seemed absurd, but since we could no longer find a solution, we accepted the suggestion. An energy expert examined our house and said that the energy of an old event might have accumulated there. This meant that there could be some kind of paranormal activity. The energy expert claimed that this energy could somehow affect our belongings and cause them to disappear. Although this seemed strange and unrealistic at first, there was a change in the atmosphere in the house. We practiced a few rituals suggested by the expert, and the energy balance in the house changed. From that day on, our belongings stopped disappearing, and the tense atmosphere in our home became more peaceful. Although we don't understand exactly what caused this incident, thanks to the energy expert's suggestions, our problem has disappeared. During my high school years, I was deeply affected by an incident that happened one evening when I was home alone. At the time, my family was out at an event one evening, and I was home alone. In this situation, I would usually watch a movie, read a book, or make phone calls to friends. However, that evening something different than usual happened. As the clock approached midnight, my phone started ringing. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered on instinct. The voice on the other end had a strange and sad tone. He called me by name and asked, "You know me, don't you?" However, his voice did not sound familiar in any way. I said, "Yes," but I was still trying to figure out who this person was. He sounded like he had played an important role in many people's lives, but I didn't remember this person. As the conversation continued, I realized that this person had very specific information about me. He was talking about my family, my friends, and my personal life. However, I didn't understand how he knew this information. This person spoke as if he had a connection with me. At that moment, I decided to hang up the phone in fear, but somehow the person stopped me and said, "I'm going to show you something." Then, my phone screen went black, and I started seeing a series of strange symbols and shapes. These were strange symbols that I could not make sense of. His tone of voice changed, and it felt like he was speaking from another dimension. This affected me deeply and made me fearful. During my university years, an unusual experience I had with a person I met online affected me deeply. One day, I joined a group chat on social media and started exchanging private messages with a person I met there. This dialogue, which started as an ordinary friendship at first, took a strange turn over time. My online friend kept making predictions about the future while talking to me. At first, I took it as a joke, but then some of the things he said started to come true. For example, one day he told me, "You will change jobs soon," and a few weeks later, I was actually offered a job. I thought such predictions were just a coincidence, but over time he began to accurately predict more complex events. One day, he told me about an impending car accident and the stressful situation I would experience as a result. After it happened, I was shaken by the thought that this person might have a supernatural gift. However, he did not limit this to positive events. One day he started fighting with me, and soon afterwards, as he said, we actually had a disagreement. Although these events surprised me, I realized that I needed to know the limits of knowing this person. After a while, I distanced myself from this person and decided to be more careful in my relationships with people I met online.